Welcome to the Friendly Moms Club podcast with Jen and Karlee. We're the new mom friends you didn't know you needed.
We are creating a safe space to bring moms together, lighten the heaviness, and find joy in the everyday moments. Together, we will share our own experiences of being new moms while navigating the topics we wish more people talked about.
Join us every Monday to hear us skip the small talk and dive right into the uncomfortable.
Hello, happy Mom Day, Karlee.
Happy Mom Day, Jen. It's a beautiful day.
We're changing it
up today.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Today is episode 50.
Yeah.
50.
We've been doing this for over a year now, which is wild.
Very, very wild.
And just yesterday, Karlee got seen in the wild. Someone come up and was like, hey, you're from the Friendly Moms Club. And it still is so funny to me that happens, that people, you've been recognized a lot, not me, but
I'm just memorable.
Apparently you are very memorable.
Very loud. So yeah, Jess, if you're listening to this, shout out. I've also been spotted at work now, not by clients, but a couple of my coworkers are like, hey, I've seen your Instagram. And I'm like, it's not a secret. That is something I do have to be mindful of. I work in a profession where I have very strict rules about things I can recommend and share. I can't just go rogue and start sharing my own information to clients, but I can share my experience. Yes. And there's nothing here that I wouldn't share with somebody in person, because what is the quote we love?
Shame dies when stories are told in safe places.
That is it. So
I got that bad boy memorized now.
You do. You got it. On that note, if you don't follow us on Instagram, you should, because every Thursday we do Mom Truth Thursday, where we put up a little question box and moms get to write in and tell us things that they are thinking, feeling, that they just want to get off their chest.
Yeah.
I'm going to read one. Well, I'm going to read a few, and we're just going to chat about them.
Sounds
good.
Good.
This is from our Mom Truth Thursday. That's a tongue twister.
I can't even do the Mom Truth Thursdays.
I was going to say it's a titty twister, but that's something else. Here's a good one. I hide in the bathroom from my toddler. Clingy toddler stage is no fun.
Dude, I do that all the time. I will pee, and then I'll sit there for 5 more minutes on the toilet, and I've been done peeing a long time ago, and I just sit there. Well, now my toddler comes in the bathroom, but when she's not there, then I just sit there, and it's just peace and quiet.
I know, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Henry hates it when I go to the bathroom too. Even though I'm literally around the corner, he screams and then he finds, it's a whole thing. So that's not my safe space, but I do hide in there when I can.
Yes.
Well, this is a good one relating to what I shared yesterday about sending Henry to daycare and feeling guilty. So when my child is at daycare, I don't miss them at all. I'm relieved for the break.
Yes.
Amen, sister.
I get so excited during the week when we can send our toddler to daycare so that we only have the baby at home, because that feels like it's not even a break, because our baby is still a ton of work and cries all the time. But I am very, very grateful for daycare. I don't know how I would do it without the help of daycare right now. They are our village.
Honestly, I would be very mentally unwell.
Yes.
So
I'm already mentally unwell, so I don't know how I would how I would cope with having the toddler home full time.
We look at so many moms who struggle so much in silence, and part of that is because they don't have a village and they don't have the ability to send their kids to daycare to get a mental reprieve. I feel for you. If that's you, I hope that you can find a break. Let's do one more here.
Okay.
This is a good one. My husband never gives me attention and I feel like I'm worthless. So big hugs to that mama, because that is such a hard feeling, and I feel it's a very common feeling postpartum when so much of your life has changed, and then you used to be the princess of the house and now your husband is doting on the child, and that's challenging. Also, I hope that you're able to have a conversation with your partner, because nobody wants to feel worthless.
You're definitely not alone in those feelings.
Alone. I don't think my husband makes me feel worthless, but I feel worthless sometimes, not because of his behaviors, but just, depression. But
I had this conversation with my husband just last week. I told him, I just am so unhappy with myself, and he's like, well, I think you're beautiful. And it actually just made me more mad that when he said that. I'm like, that's not what I want to hear. I want you to just tell me, yeah, I get it, it sucks. Having a baby was really hard on you. You're really struggling with how your body is working right now and how it's feeling and looking and how clothes fit. That sucks, and that was really hard. That's what I wanted. I just wanted him to be like, yes, I get it.
I want support, not solutions.
And him being like, well, I love you regardless. I was like, I think I actually made that sound to him. I was like, cool. That does nothing to help me right now. And so even when they think they're trying to make you feel good, it doesn't actually help a lot of the times.
They can't win.
I know they can't win.
We're at a work workshop the other day about a reflective practice in nursing and how to reflect on all your experiences and how you can learn from them. And one of the things that came up was we were talking about venting and how, yes, maybe sometimes it's not productive in the reflective way, but it is important to help offload things. But one of the things that was suggested is before you vent is like checking in with the other people's capacity. Hey, can I vent for a minute? Or prefacing it with like, I just want to get something off my chest. And then if that person says yes, their role is just to listen. It's not to offer solutions. It's literally just support, not solutions. To empathize, to validate, not to offer solutions, because that's not what you want when you're venting.
Totally.
And I remember thinking like, I need to take that strategy into my marriage because often I just want to vent, but my husband thinks I'm trying to like problem solve. So he goes into the fixer mode because he wants to help. But I need to say, hey, one, can I just vent for a minute? Make sure he has capacity.
Yeah.
I mean, I probably would anyways, but that's because I don't have good boundaries in life, but working on it.
Yeah.
But then that way he knows, like, I'm just here to provide support.
Yeah. I feel like in friendships, in professional capacity, and for your partner, that makes so much sense.
For sure. Especially those days that you're like at capacity and then somebody starts venting and you're like, I can't help.
I
if
actually
they asked before.
I actually recently just watched a clip, and it was a reel that someone had posted about relationships and how when they get home from work and like they pick up the kids, they come home, they quickly have a little meeting together and they say what their capacity it is. So it was like, okay, out of 100, like, what are you feeling right now? She'll be like, I'm at an 80. I'm feeling great today. And he's like, great, I'm at a 50. And so it's this checking in to be like, where are we both at? Okay, so then I'm going to do this and I'll make dinner. Or you're only feeling like this. Okay, do you want to make dinner so you can have some quiet time and I'll take the kids? And she's like, some days you're both going to be at a 20 and you need to know how to do. Is that the days you have takeout? Is that a day that you have meals in the freezer you use, or you call someone to help? What can you do when you're both feeling low? Just the big takeaway for me was like, that quick check-in when you get home to be like, where are we at? Are you doing okay? Am I doing okay? And then you can have a plan to how to get through the rest of the day because you don't know what the other person's feeling like. So like that idea of checking in.
You might feel shitty, but your partner might feel even worse. So
yes.
It doesn't matter that you're at a 3 out of 10 if they're at a -5.
Yes.
I think Brene Brown actually has something on that. I don't know if it was her in a podcast clip or maybe at some sort of speaking event, but if I can find it, I will post it below. Or if you have seen that, you can send it to us.
It was just a very interesting. I'm like, we need to do these little check-ins more of, okay, where are we at? Because sometimes you just assume and then you assume wrong. And
you know what happens?
Like, hey, you look great, but looks can be deceiving. We're going to talk about this today.
You and me.
Looks can be deceiving, especially when it comes to mental health and your capacity, right? That just because someone looks happy and looks like they got it all together doesn't mean that they do. So
I feel like I'm the poster child for that. When I shared at work how much I was struggling with my depression and anxiety when I was leaving the hospital, like working in the hospital, so many people were like, wow, I had no idea. And I'm like, that's because I pull it all together for work and then I crumble and I have no capacity to parent or be a wife or a friend or anything at home.
Yes. I think so many people correlate being depressed to never being able to smile or say nice things or be positive at all. Like they think you have to be in bed crying all day and that means you're depressed. But
that can be, but
that totally can be. And I have days like that. But some days when I'm depressed, I still can smile. I can still make jokes. I can still I don't laugh at them myself. You know, it feels different for me.
Yeah.
But to anyone else, they would think I'm a happy-go-lucky,
everything for you is dark.
Yes.
Like what you see is dark, but what other people see is bright because that's what you're putting out there.
And I've been,
inside it's
I've been told
darkness.
this all the time. Like, but you always seem so happy and doesn't mean I'm not depressed because let me tell you, I am very depressed right now. We're going to talk about it a little bit today. And
let me tell you about my depression.
Yeah, let's get into it today.
Talk about it.
Why not?
Today we're going to look back on the last year of podcasting, the last year of us sharing our motherhood journeys online.
Yeah.
And you know what? We haven't had as many haters as expected. We've had a few. One real, lots of haters. But maybe we'll do an episode one day about the funny Karen comments we've gotten because there's been a lot on like the breastfeeding reels. People get real fired up. And there was one about, I think it was Jordan watching TV and somebody was like, because you don't love your child or something. Anyways, one day we'll do a reel or something about that. But yeah, today we're gonna look back. We're gonna welcome to our journey. So I think Jen kind of nailed it there on the first piece that like all of our experiences are so different and we can experience similar struggles, but the context of our life is so important to recognize and understand that we can all be struggling with motherhood and parenting and whatever parts of that, but we're still so unique in our struggles.
Yes.
And that actually highlights the importance of, when you are the receiver of venting, to not jump into solution mode, because you don't always know their situation, you know?
No, and you might judge them. And this came up once in a group of mom friends. You're talking about how there's a big storm of motherhood and you're all in your little boats and like you're all just like struggling to get through the storm. And a comment was made that, well, some of you though are in yachts and others are in rowboats. And they were implying that if you're in the rowboat, it was much harder for you than if you were in a yacht. Like, it's much easier to get through the storm. And I get where they were coming from, but I think it's important to keep in the back of your mind that someone may appear that they are in the yacht and that they have it all together, but they might not, or they might just have way different struggles that you don't have in your rowboat that you've never thought about. And I'm not going to continue with this whole boat metaphor, but I'm just saying you should never judge someone unless you know all of the facts, and we never know all the facts. Yeah. So then it just comes back to don't judge others. We are all in just such different circumstances. And we are all allowed to struggle, and we're allowed to struggle differently. I think being able to talk about our struggles is just so healthy. And we're not doing it to compare and say my struggle is harder than your struggle. It's just so that we can get it off of our chest and that have that release, and being able to have someone just be there for you that you can call and just say, I'm having a really bad day, knowing that they won't judge you and that they will just listen. Like, that is what you need. So just that reminder to not judge someone.
And I think it's important to consider your privilege in different situations. If you are with a group of people, if you're with a group of single moms, don't sit there and complain about how stupid your partner is, because read the room. Yeah. You know, just things like that. But sure, it is important to recognize privilege, but also people who are, in air quotes, privileged also can struggle just as much. They just struggle with different things. Our struggles are all different. And that kind of brings us to the point that, like, we can share without the need to compare.
Yes.
Should we get that tattooed on our bodies?
I know. That is great.
We all have different struggles. And yes, privilege does come into play. It's like the whole, like, oh, like, you can't complain about a broken toe. There's people without legs. And it's okay, but that doesn't mean that a broken toe isn't, like, very difficult for whoever's dealing with it, you know? Like, just because other people are struggling more, like, it's not the struggle Olympics, you know?
And someone's mental capacity, you never know what their mental capacity is. So a broken toe to them, if they're not doing well mentally, could mean that they spiral into depression, and that could be what pushes them over the edge. And we don't know that about everyone. So why are we so quick to judge and just make these rude comments about people? Social media is so bad for this, because they take this snippet, this little snapshot of someone's life, and they assume all of these things that just aren't true half the time, and more than half the time. And so, yes.
Anyways, as share. We tangent on that. But yeah, share without the need to compare.
Yes.
Or offer unsolicited advice.
I have actually done this twice this week, where people vented to me, like, through text messages, and I wrote back immediately being like, oh, you should try this. And then I wrote back again being like, oh, wait, sorry, you weren't asking for advice. Like, I'm just ignore my last message. If you just want to vent, that's totally fine. Or if you're looking for help, I am happy to give you some suggestions. And so I had to, like, because I like to help people, and I like to talk about things. And so my first, like, I just jumped the gun and I just keep wanting to go and fix people. But I know that that's not what you always want. So I went back, and twice this week alone that has happened. And I had to be like, oh no, sorry that I jumped the gun. You might not give a shit what I have to say. You just wanted to vent to me, which is totally fair.
At work, we learn different phrases that you can use and put in your toolkit. And there was one that I heard my supervisor say the other day to someone, like, not in a work setting. We were just all having lunch. And she said, oh, what could make that better for you? And I'm like, what a nice way to offer support, but also give the opportunity for the person to either say, well, like, no, just listening or whatever, or actually we can get into solution mode. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
I like that.
A good check-in.
Yeah. Added that to the list. So sharing the quote that we say all of the time. Do you want to say it?
Well, we already talked about it.
Oh, we did. Okay.
We already said it.
Oh, whoopsies. Today, we are going to share a little bit more about our journey with perinatal mental health. And I'm intentionally not calling it postpartum depression, because we are learning now that the mental health stuff can happen anywhere from pregnancy, postpartum. Like, it's not just postpartum. And that's a shift that we've had in work. It's now like perinatal mood disorders, to include, you know, depression, anxiety, OCD, psychosis.
Making sure that we focus on pregnancy and other aspects, because you experienced a ton in your pregnancy.
Yeah, mine was very uncharacteristic to what I was expecting. So I kept being told, you're at higher risk of postpartum depression. I have a strong family history of it. And I also have a personal history with depression and anxiety. So I kept getting told, okay, when baby comes, you're going to be depressed, essentially. Like,
when baby comes is the key there, right?
And it wasn't until I got connected with reproductive psychiatry through Fraser Health, which is lovely, but it takes about 4 to 5 months to get in, that I realized, holy doodle, I am really depressed right now. And the first maybe 4 months of my pregnancy, there was no light. It was just all darkness. I was completely just pulling myself together for work. I was also struggling physically with nausea and low energy. But then on top of that, I was really struggling with depression. But I kept thinking like, oh no, it's not going to happen until I have baby. So this is just pregnancy. And looking back, I'm like, how did I not recognize it? I don't know. Like, I remember my hubby and I talking like, yeah, I was really depressed. Whoops, missed that one. And I was already on an SSRI, but I clearly needed a higher dose and needed some like lifestyle modifications, but I didn't have the capacity then. And then postpartum, I did okay. I had like regular doctor's appointments, therapy, all of that, increased my meds a little bit just to help a little bit with some of the intrusive thoughts, but I did all of the lifestyle stuff and I had a great postpartum experience until I returned to work. And that is when I had a huge flare up of depression and anxiety to the point that I had to take a leave from work because I was not coping. And then I went back in a different capacity and it took me a long time to get to where I am now.
But no one talks about that. Everyone talks about postpartum depression being within that first, like I would say people focus on the first 6 months even.
Yeah.
Like when you have a baby in those first 6 months, watch out for these signs, then you should get help. And it's kind of like end period, that's it.
And even the clinical diagnosis goes up. It's depression that occurs up until 1 year postpartum. But mine happened at like 14 months. Does that make it not postpartum depression? Maybe, maybe not. For me, it doesn't matter because I already had depression and anxiety. But women going back to work, whenever that happens, that is a huge risk factor for mental health challenges because it's a huge change. So maybe we need to support moms differently during that time because there's a lot of focus, like Jen said, in those first few weeks, first few months. And then the support kind of tapers off. But as Jen's going to share right now, sometimes you struggle the most when you get to the point that everyone thinks you're supposed to have it together. Oh, your baby's 4 months old, 5 months old. Oh, so obviously feeding is so easy now. You figured it out. Oh, obviously baby's sleeping better now. But
this is your second baby, so you're good, right?
Yeah,
like,
you're fine.
Obviously,
right? Obviously, you're
obviously
fine,
you know what you're doing.
So we'll go to the next segment. Jen has nothing to share because she is fine, right?
Yeah. And on this whole note, and this is kind of a little segue, and then I'll come back to this, but talking about the comparison about having 2 kids and people thinking like, well, you have it all together and like, oh, but you have 2 under 2. So like, then we're going to give you some more support because that's hard. Well, it's hard at any age. Like, I feel so weird saying I have 2 under 2 because I feel like it comes across as like, yay me. And it's just like a weird, I don't know. I have weird feelings about it. It feels yucky to me. But a friend of ours, her toddler just turned 2. So she's like, okay, so it's all good now, right? I don't have 2 under 2 anymore. The toddler's 2. So cross that off the list. Yeah. I'm perfectly fine. Life is great now. And it just doesn't work that way.
It gives you the ick. Where I feel like that saying, it was made to speak to the unique challenges of somebody who has 2 under 2.
Yes.
But some people are wearing it as if it's like a badge of honor. Like to them, it's like a sign of, oh, I have 2 under 2. Like their struggle, it's like a struggle Olympics. Like their struggles are harder.
Yes. Their struggles are more important than your struggles.
Yeah. But what about the moms who have a 1-year-old and a 7-year-old and
they're in sports and school and have homework and all these projects and you're driving them everywhere. Right? Like there can be so much.
It's the same with, oh, well, you only have 1 kid or you only have 2 kids. Like I have 7. So obviously motherhood is harder for me.
Yeah.
It's hard for everybody.
It is hard for everyone. So I just think that it is important to note. I thought, again, I say this before, but I get really cocky, I guess. I guess I just have a lot of self-confidence sometimes and then it just gets wiped away and I get kicked in the ass because I've just been rocked again. And I knew what to look out for. I knew that I struggle with trauma, depression, anxiety. I am on an SSRI. I have been for a long time now. I knew what to look for, but it definitely came up differently this time for me than I experienced with Jordan. I'd say like with my first, I was way more aware of it. And the same thing. Everyone was like, you're at a higher risk for having it because you have diagnosed PTSD. So yes, you're more aware of what to do, how to help, but we should just keep an eye on it. And so I just had so much support. And I think coming into the second child, people just assumed I would be okay. And like I knew what I was doing. But it wasn't until recently, I would say the last like month, where I've started to have these terrible thoughts of my family is better off without me and they don't need me. I just need to leave. And there's no like end thought to this. Like it's not like I've started packing bags and I knew I was going to leave, or that they were suicidal thoughts. They were just these terrible thoughts that they don't need me around and I'm toxic to them and they'd be better off without me. And with those thoughts, I get this feeling inside of me. And I don't think people talk a lot about the physical feelings of depression and anxiety. If you've never been told this before, what's the term for it? Oftentimes with anxiety and depression, you can have an actual physical response.
Yeah.
You might be mentally having bad thoughts, and it can show up differently for different people. So for me, it's like when you're in that roller coaster and you drop down and your stomach feels like it's
in your butthole.
Yes, and it like your stomach drops, but then I also feel like it's knotted inside of me. So it like drops and then I get this like really tight tension feeling in my guts. And that's what I get when I get these terrible thoughts and I'm feeling super anxious or I'm going to have a panic attack or anything like that. Like that is my physical response. And for other people, they get really nauseous. It's really important if you can start to recognize some of these like physical signs that you're not doing well, because you might think, oh, I'm sick. I'm feeling nauseous because I just have a little bit of a tummy bug, or I ate something that didn't sit well with me, when really it's your body trying to tell you like, you're not doing well. Like you need to get some help. Like mentally things are going on.
Well, fun fact, I went through like months of testing for some sort of digestive disorder.
Yeah.
I did blood tests. I did a colonoscopy. I did an endoscopy into my stomach, and turns out it was all anxiety.
Right.
And it took years to finally get to that point. And I'm like, oh, my anxiety was causing physical symptoms, very real physical symptoms that a doctor shoved a camera up my butthole.
Yes. People can feel like they're having a heart attack, right? You can get like chest pains, and I've experienced some, but it's actually just been panic attacks and my anxiety. But it'll feel like these weird pains across your chest, which are terrifying, but they're very real physical symptoms. Like the mind body is so connected, but we don't talk about that a lot. So it's just like, oh, that's okay. You didn't eat enough. You're a mom. That's fine.
Even things like low energy or like body pains, like aches and pains. That is one of my symptoms of depression, is I start like hurting. Like I worked out, but I was not working out, let me tell you. And the low energy. And I'm like, oh, I guess I just have to sleep more, or I have to take better care of myself. And it's not that I'm actually low energy. It's depression.
Yes. Yeah. I feel the same way.
Why don't we go through this list a little bit here while we're kind of talking signs and symptoms. So from Perinatal Services BC, we'll link it, but they have a really good document. It's a very easy read, 117 pages, but it's got a lot of like different tools in it. They have a good description of depression.
So some of the signs and symptoms. So feeling depressed or extremely sad most of the day, nearly every day, feeling irritable or angry, feeling very guilty or worthless, feeling hopeless, feeling overwhelmed, not enjoying the baby, not interested or not being able to enjoy activities that you used to enjoy. Then they also list some behaviors. So sleeping a lot more or less than usual, eating a lot more or less than usual, withdrawing from family, friends, and social contact. Some of the physical symptoms, so crying for no apparent reason, feeling restless, having little energy, having difficulty concentrating or making decisions, having physical symptoms like headaches or upset stomach. And then thoughts, having thoughts that you're a bad mom or a terrible mom, having frightening thoughts, including harming yourself and or the baby. So this is actually one of the best lists I've ever seen that talks about perinatal depression, because so many just say you're just not happy.
You're blue for a 2-week period.
You just cry and you lay in bed for a little while, and that's depression. But there's so many more symptoms that people gloss over that they're like, oh, that's not depression. That's just normal.
Or even so, like some of the things on the list, I thought was very Spanish, very things on this list.
Yes.
Very Spain of me. You may not instantly relate to, but having thoughts like, oh, like I'm such a bad mom. My family doesn't need me. Like feelings of worthlessness, or why is it always so hard for me? It's never going to get better. I'm never going to be a good mom. Feelings of hopelessness, or just the intrusive thoughts and the sad thoughts, that feeling that you're never enjoying anything about motherhood or your kids. Those are the like they're not little, but those are the like day-to-day subtleties
Yes.
and signs that like people think, oh, this is just normal. Motherhood is hard.
Yeah.
And yeah, motherhood is freaking hard. And not every person who thinks they're a bad mom has depression, but it shows up in so many ways that we then ignore or normalize, which is kind of what we're here for. And these aren't diagnostics. We're not diagnosing you. See your doctor, see your midwife, see your nurse practitioner, whoever. But just know that if you're experiencing these, maybe it's more than just being tired or whatever.
And let me tell you, having those thoughts that your family doesn't need you are awful.
Yeah, that's so nice. I find it takes me time to even acknowledge that I'm having that thought, because it's almost like there's somebody else inside of me telling it to me, that it's like the voices in my head. Like I'm like having conversations with whoever this bitch is in my head. And then I realize, like, oh, that's me. Like, these are my thoughts, you know?
Yes. And I had to work myself up to tell my husband about it. And I was like, I know that it is so unhealthy if I don't tell anyone that I'm having these thoughts, because the more that you let that just sit inside of you, it is going to eat away at you. And it's just going to come back stronger and stronger. And this is something my therapist talks about all the time with me, is that like keeping all of these bad thoughts that I have inside is actually going to make it worse, because they have these thoughts and these ideas and they want to come out. And if you don't let it come out, it's just going to keep, like, it's like an angry dog inside of you. If you don't let it get what it's want, if you don't let it get to its bone, it's going to keep coming and coming. It's going to get angrier and angrier. So she's like, you have to let these things out. And so I remember talking to my husband, and I was so nervous. No one wants to say these things, because it's almost like when you say it out loud, it becomes real and true. And so you keep it in.
And it feels shameful.
Yes. And that angry dog keeps coming stronger and stronger, and you feel worse and worse. And just being able to tell him, I felt a weight coming off my shoulders. And I just felt, you know what? Okay, that was good. It didn't make it all better, but it was like that 1% of just like ease. And I just needed to kind of get that edge off from feeling so terrible. But then I get these thoughts, and this is also new. I haven't experienced this before, but this was actually just this week. I'm very much struggling right now. And I actually felt like I needed to run out of the room. I was holding my baby. So the good thing is that I couldn't, because she was asleep on me. But like my body just all of a sudden felt like I needed to run. And it was that fight or flight. My body just could not handle what was happening. And there was a lot of sensory overload. And all I wanted to do was run out of the house. Like, I had no idea what I would, like, there was no end. There's no like reasoning to it, but I just was like, I need to run. And so I sat there holding my baby who was sleeping, being like, I felt like I needed to run a marathon. Like I just had all of this pent up energy that was like moving, and I couldn't sit still. And it was the weirdest.
You needed that release.
It was so weird. But I was like, okay, I'm not doing well. This is not a normal response to have, just because my other toddler is crying in the other room.
But it's like a cheese grater, like right on your bits, like.
And when you're not doing well, these things, when your body gives you a response like that, you know, okay, I'm not coping well in everyday life, right? Like one time, if you have as strong as a reaction, like a visceral reaction like that I did from one small thing happening, your child is crying and they're having a tantrum. If one tantrum sends you into that state, you should probably talk to your doctor about it. That is not normal.
It's common. You're not alone in it, but it's not normal.
No, but it's not okay. Like you should be talking to someone about these things. And
it comes back to the whole window of tolerance. So we've talked about it on here before, that it's essentially like your capacity to deal with things. And we'll post a link below to what's the guy's name that invented it?
I don't remember.
Anyways, so the window of tolerance is like your capacity to deal with adversity and whatever's happening in your environment. And as you become sleep deprived, or you're living in a chaotic environment, or whatever stressors you have in your life, that window of tolerance gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So the smallest thing takes you outside of your window of tolerance, and you yell, you scream, you whatever it is, you cry, you
feel like running.
Yes. Whatever it is. So that's a good thing to think about, that like motherhood in general and parenting comes with so many challenges, and those challenges narrows that window of tolerance so much that everything is so much harder. You have less capacity to deal with anything. So like an annoying husband asking a stupid question sends you off, what's it? You flip your lid, or you sends you off the handle.
Yeah.
Does all those things.
I will share a little story, and this is embarrassing for me, but it's about the window of tolerance. So if I made eggs, I would crack the eggs and I'd put the eggshells back in the egg carton.
Oh, you're one of them.
Yes. I don't do it anymore because of this incident I'm going to talk about. So I would do this, and apparently my husband, this just made him very angry, but he never said anything to me. Like, he was annoyed by it every single time, but he never said anything to me. And we were dealing with a particularly hard time in our life. We've dealt with a lot of trauma and hard things at work. And so he wasn't doing very well. And one time he opened the fridge and went to get the eggs out, and he saw these the eggshells in the egg carton, and he just flipped out at me. And I was like, oh, like, this is about the eggshells? Like, his reaction was
not about the pasta.
And yeah, so he was like, it's not about the eggshells. And like, he was just not doing well. And so when he saw those eggshells, it just like, his window of tolerance was like a millimeter big. It was so small.
Did
and
you
so
say
just
as
like
thin as an eggshell?
Yeah. Good one. And anyway, so we talk about this all the time of like, oh, is this like one of the eggshell things? This is like the eggshell. It's that small thing that you notice is just creating this big reaction. You're like, oh, okay, I need to do some things to kind of get my window of tolerance back up.
Yeah.
And that is the beautiful thing, is that you can change your window of tolerance. It's not once it gets small, it has to stay that size. No. You can do, there's flexible. So many different things that you can do to increase your window of tolerance again. And that's the beautiful part.
Listening to this podcast,
listening to this podcast, on Instagram. But the normal ones people talk about are going to therapy, go get help and talk to someone, talking to your family doctor, medication. And those are all great things. And we both do all of these things. And a lot of those are really good first steps. But then there's a lot of other things that you can do at home.
Shall we talk about nests?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. A tool that we use at work and that Jen and I have both used while pregnant and postpartum. It's called the NESTS tool. So like NESTS. And that stands for nutrition, exercise, sleep. I'm like, what? It's not sex. Sleep.
I mean, that would also be helpful, though.
Sleep, time for self, and supports. So you go to those are the 5 things you need to create that little nest for yourself. And they're so basic. They're not the sexy changes. They're not the, really the cool stuff you can post on Instagram. It's the like small little things that you can do day to day to widen that window of tolerance. And it's a snowball effect that once you start taking care of one of those areas, that they compound. Things like nutrition. So not just eating toast crust or not eating proper meals with protein, with fats, with carbs that actually fill you so that you're not having a roller coaster of blood sugar highs and lows on top of everything else you're dealing with. And exercise. You don't need to go to a boot camp, but going for a walk, doing 10 minutes of yoga. Moving your body. Dancing with your kids. Sleep. You can't just sleep when the baby sleeps, but you can actually get off your phone and go to sleep and, find a way, if you're in that like fresh postpartum stage, find a way to get a 4-hour chunk.
Yeah.
However that is. Maybe not in the first month, but after that, when the adrenaline wears off, find a way to get that solid 4-hour chunk every single day.
Yeah.
Time for self, that one's easy to figure out. Well, not easy, but you can take that however you need. 5 minutes of alone time, lock yourself in the bathroom. And then supports, actually listing the people in your life that are a support to you and asking for support from them. So whether that is your mom saying, hey, you need to come over for an hour and watch the baby while I shower. Calling a friend, hey, I need some friendship right now. Can we go for a walk? Like actually highlighting those supports and then actually asking those supports for help. Like I said, these are not the sexy things. They're the little things that really do make a difference.
The whole time you're talking about nests, like what I really think it comes down to is self-care, actually taking care of yourself.
It's a fancy word for self-care.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've been talking about this so much like on our social media because we have realized now over the last almost 2 years, we're almost going to have 2-year-olds. Like over the last 2 years that this is really important. Yes, going to talk to someone is important. And luckily we have benefits so that it's covered, but not everyone does have benefits. It's just important to really at the very basic level of trying to get sleep and doing the things that you can do at home that's in your control.
That are free and are actually accessible.
Free. Exercise. It doesn't need to be you're going to the gym and you have a membership and you're paying hundreds of dollars to go to spin classes. Just moving your body, getting outside for fresh air and walking, even if it's with your toddler and you're not walking at a fast pace, that is so good for your mental health. What they teach you when you go to therapy is to get pocket practices. So what are small things that you can do that are in your pocket? So they're small, short time frame things that you can do to help calm your nervous system and take the edge off when things are really overwhelming. And a lot of it is breath work, which is free. And there's free apps that will actually guide you through these. So Insight Timer is a really great one. Headspace, Calm, I think it's actually just called Calm. But they'll guide you through different breathing techniques or different meditations and mindfulness practices. And it's actually huge. The research out there for different breathing techniques of how to lower your nervous system is unreal. And it's free and accessible, and you can just do it in a few minutes. You can go in your room, lock yourself in the bathroom while you're on the toilet and just plop on one of these little breath work, right?
Even a lot of our phones, not our phones, our watches, you can have, there's little apps on them that you can add that take you through a 2-minute meditation or a breathing exercise. Even just like taking a couple deep breaths, like it is wild how good that feels.
Yes.
Jeff and I do that all the time. I'm like, okay, we each need to have a deep breath and then we need to hug.
Yes.
And then we need to dance to music. That is our 4-minute reset because it takes us from like a window of tolerance that's paper thin to then 2 papers.
If you're in emergency services, you will hear the term combat breathing. And when you're in these high stress situations and you finally get to a point where, you can have a second, take deep breaths, and it actually will just calm everything down so you can think reasonably and figure out a game plan from there. But you need these pocket practices to get you to that spot where you can think a bit more reasonably and realistically.
Like getting out of your like emotional brain and getting back to your thinking brain, because that's when you do ridiculous things like throwing things and smashing them in your kitchen because you're not thinking clearly because it's your emotional brain taking over. I don't know if anyone else is a smasher. I'm a smasher. I love to break shit when I get mad. This is not something I like to do in front of my toddler, so I need these pocket practices so that I don't break things.
I find what I've been doing more so lately, and I know that you do this, is listening to music or a podcast when I'm in the kitchen. So before, I would just clean the kitchen while my husband is with the kids. But hearing them, and I would still just it wasn't actually restful to me. And I was still thinking about them and like, oh, did I hear someone cry? Oh, did I hear that? Oh, I think she's mad. And I'd be thinking and focusing on everything the kids were doing. Even though my husband had them, they were totally fine. So I would actually start listening to music and putting something in, listen to a podcast. And you can actually, like, your nervous system just comes back down. And then you just mindlessly do your chores, cook dinner, do whatever you need to do. When I shower, now I listen to music. And yes, it's just enjoyable and I get to listen to the music I like. But it's mostly so that I don't hear anything else. If he needs me, he will come get me. Like, if shit hits the fan, he will come get my help. I don't need to listen to what's happening. I need to let my body actually have a break and not focus on it. It's like a small thing that you can do, but if you have a partner or a support system that comes to help you with the kids,
or even a really good bouncy chair,
actually let yourself have that break. Even if it's 10 minutes of listening to something where you can turn off that like overbearing mom mode of I need to be in control of everything and listening. Like it does wonders.
Let it go. And
let it go.
I don't know the words.
I don't
really
either.
should.
I know, let it go.
Really what all those things you're describing are time for self.
Yes.
Sure, you're multitasking. You otherwise would just be like doing dishes or showering, but you're finding a way to make that also more meaningful time for yourself. And yeah, in a perfect world, you would have an hour to go for a walk, go to the spa, whatever, have a bubble bath. But like, we're talking realistic here.
And things that everyone can do.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what we don't want to tell you, like, oh, go to therapy, hire a house cleaner, do this, because not all these things are accessible to everyone. And we realize that. So there's lots of really good pocket practices. And maybe we'll do an episode all about the actual like pocket practices, things that we use. We've talked about some of them here, but there's really good breathwork ones that we can talk about.
And even like those big sexy things like going to the spa, going shopping, getting a house cleaner. Yes, those things do help, but the effects aren't really as long term as something like being able to regulate your nervous system in minutes. For me, those things almost bring me more stress because I'm supposed to enjoy them and they're supposed to like be this big dopamine hit and make the whole world okay, but that's not what happens. So then I feel stressed about not enjoying whatever it was, you know?
And also, if you don't know how to regulate your emotions and how to downgrade your nervous system, how are you ever going to teach that to your children? And children have a lot of emotions. And as we've already been seeing, like, terrible twos is such a lie. It started at 18 months for us. I think they just have lots of big emotions and trying to say that it only happens when they're 2 is a load of
terrible
malarkey. What's the term? I don't know. Something like that.
A crock of shit. You're much more delicate than I am.
It happens all the time, and you need to help teach them how to regulate these big emotions.
It's literally our job.
And so how are you regulating your emotions?
Yes.
And so we actually started teaching my toddler, and she's still so young, so it's not like she knows how to do this, but if she's really freaking out and having a tantrum, we'll put our hand out and we'll say, okay, trace dad's hand, breathe in and breathe out, and you trace your whole hand and then come back. It takes the focus away, and you're just, while you're breathing, you're just focusing on something else, and it takes you out of that tantrum. We're starting to show her some of these practices, like, hey, this is what we do when we're feeling really overwhelmed. And it's just really cool to see and be able to teach these things to your kids. You're like, I feel so good when I do this. I'm like, look at me.
I never taught this.
Right? Like, This is so helpful. If she can
sure.
learn this at a couple years old.
Yeah. Imagine if, well, this is going to be our future for our kids. That very few of us were taught how to name emotions, recognize them, have them validated, and learning how to actually experience them. If you're a kid, a product of the 80s or 90s or even early 2000s, like that's just was not the general parenting trend. That's just, that's not what it was.
Yeah.
And now that we're learning, wait a second, kids have no ability to regulate their emotions and their brain's not developed. Like, who the hell is going to teach them?
Yeah.
And it's like, wait, that's our job, not just the parents. It's like all the caregivers and society as a whole. It's not, the onus should not just be placed on the parents. It's everybody. And we're finally learning that, doing that, actually acknowledging, which is wonderful. I love it. I love it.
There's so many different components to it, but it's just so important to take care of yourself. And we have realized this so much in the last couple years, and from doing this podcast, this is something that we enjoy, that brings us joy, that we feel good about. Yes, our lives are so crazy and so busy, but being able to do this and talk to people and the connections we've made through social media and meeting people out and about that have heard our show or seen our Instagram and being able to talk to them and they feel safe talking to us about things, like it just
feels good.
It feels so good. And we love doing this, and we want to be able to keep doing this and talking about important things. And like mental health and self-care are just
so important.
Oh, we both feel so strongly about this. We just want to shout it from the rooftops.
We can. And if we weren't doing these daily things, if we weren't doing the small, simple things, this podcast wouldn't still exist, because we would have burned ourselves out. There's been points where I'm like, I have so much on my plate. Like, how am I going to do this? Something has to give. And then I realized what has to give are the expectations I put on myself. Yes. I don't think that we would have been able to continue this for a year, continue this for 50 episodes while also working full-time jobs, having 2 under 2, getting pregnant again, having partners with health stuff, families with health stuff, and also having toddlers on top of all of that. And then having the podcast, having the Instagram. Like, we wouldn't have been able to do that if we were not taking care of ourselves. Yeah. And that is our biggest realization this last year, is we've both been through a lot. And we are in no way like on a pedestal being like, you have to do this. I was going to say, those shall, whatever. Follow what we say. We're not here preaching to you. We're literally in the trench with you. Yes. We are walking alongside you, being like, hey, this worked for me. We are here to share in that way. In no way we think we're better than you. Should I do that voice
no, you
again?
should not.
That is what we're realizing, is we have found so much more joy in motherhood. So much. We would not be here today recording episode 50 if we did not have all of these tools. And that doesn't make us better than anybody. It just makes us...
We've done therapy for a very long time.
Yes, 100%. And also, we're just here on the internet talking about it. There's many other people who have, like, in air quotes, done the work. They just don't put it out on the internet. Yes. For people, we want people to know that it's hard work, and it's possible to see the light at the end of the tunnel, even when you're in that dark cave. Yes. Right?
And I just wanted to mention too, like, when you have those really terrible dark thoughts, they feel so overwhelming and it can be really scary to share them. It allows you like freedom to deal with it and to actually explore what's causing those thoughts.
It gives you that capacity to actually
but I wouldn't be able to be here talking about, I had these thoughts about my family being better off without me this week. Like, that just happened this week, that these thoughts were happening. But I made that big step in being able to tell my husband, and now I can tell the world, like, that I've had these thoughts, right? Like, there's something freeing about it that I'm like, like, this feels so good to be able to say it. And it's a bad, scary thought to have. But I just...
Well, it's not bad. It's not...
It's just... but it makes me feel...
It's uncomfortable.
So uncomfortable.
But it's not right or wrong bad.
Yes. It's just
there's
like
no morality to it.
Yucky thought to have. Like, it makes me feel...
Yes. You feel bad. Not that it's a bad thought.
Yes. Yeah. So if I can just encourage you to, if you're having those bad thoughts, just share with someone. It doesn't have to be your spouse if you don't have that relationship, or like your parents. Just... It can be us. But just find someone to share all of those deep, dark thoughts you're having, because, and I'm not going to keep quoting this quote from Ann Voskamp because we love it, but I don't need to keep repeating it.
Yes, we do.
There's something so freeing and allows you to move on from it when you can just say the words out loud and acknowledge it. And if you don't have someone, write it down. Journaling is so powerful, but actually getting those words from your head and putting them on paper is also a release. It also allows you to kind of like take a step back and look at them and then kind of deal with what they mean and what's going on.
And maybe that's what you do first and then you share.
Yes. And maybe that's step one. And yeah, step two is finding someone you can share them with. But I just really want to encourage you to really share, because motherhood is hard. We don't need to do it alone. Like, it is meant to be done together. And the only way we can do that is to not judge other people, to be there for other people, to listen without judgment. And
Linda, listen! Sorry, just popped into my head.
in order to do any of these things, you need to take care of yourself.
Yes, you
And
do.
we've just had such an aha moment in the last couple months of like, we really need to focus. This is what we need to be doing first. And then all the rest of the other things can come after that. But like, these simple things that we are doing every day to take care of ourselves are just so important. So that is, I don't know.
No, that was good. Sorry, I interrupted you with annoying
That's okay.
comments. I
don't
you know that video, Linda, listen. It's like a little 4-year-old yelling at his mom to listen, or whoever Linda is. It's really funny.
I don't know.
If you haven't seen it.
I don't know.
It'll bring you joy. You were talking about putting ourselves first. And that doesn't mean that like our needs come before other people in our family all of the time. That's not at all. It's like, we just want you to consider your needs and put those little needs first. Little things like having a poop, having a shower, doing your nest, like those little things, because then you have the capacity to do the other things for everybody else, but also you'll get to enjoy motherhood. There's always that narrative like, oh, take care of yourself so you can take care of your family. It's like, yeah, cool, that's great, but like, why don't we take care of ourselves so that we can enjoy motherhood? Like, why don't we frame it like that ever? And it's the patriarchy. We don't want you functioning to enjoy this. We want it so that you can be a more productive mother. That's the whole patriarchy, right? Like, our worth is in how good we can mother.
Yes.
We're saying your worth is not just to be a, air quotes, good mother. You deserve to enjoy motherhood as well.
Yes.
So do the things so that you can enjoy this journey, because it's your motherhood too.
But it's also, you have to change your mindset on it.
100%.
Right? So us telling you, take care of yourself, it's not going to click. You're not going to do it. You have to shift those mindset of what you believe. So some of the big things, like some of the big shifts that are, we think, important, is that self-care is not selfish.
It is not.
Yeah.
One big shift we've had is that we are good enough exactly how we are. We don't have to be perfect moms. So the whole idea of, like, in air quotes, good enough parenting, that you don't have to be the best. You don't have to be perfect. You're good enough. Yeah. You're good enough.
It's okay to struggle. And we're actually all struggling. Maybe some people don't show it or tell you about it, but we are all struggling, and that is okay. That doesn't make you a bad mom. No.
And sometimes they're big, scary struggles, like the thoughts Jen has been sharing, or maybe they're like the little struggles, like I don't know. There's so many. I was going to say you can't tie your shoe, but I don't know. You lost a shoe. Your dog ate your shoe. Like that. Sure. Maybe not a little struggle to some, but you know, the little things, you stub your toe, but we all got big struggles, little struggles, and they're all okay. And it does not make you a bad mom.
Yeah.
And then the last one that we need to talk more about as a generation is that being a martyr does not equal being a good mom. And the narrative that we were taught from our grandparents, our parents, is that moms sacrifice everything for their children. And we're here to be like, absolutely not. Yes, you make sacrifices. Yes, sometimes your kid's going to eat your food and it's going to piss you off. But you don't have to give up your entire self, your dreams, your ambitions, yourself to be a good mom. And I actually believe it's the opposite. Like, teaching our children that we are also humans and this is how you take care of yourself and prioritize yourself, then hopefully when our kids become parents, they don't have to then go and learn that and undo all of this damage, you know?
My therapist actually just talked to me about this too, because I was like, what's your big fear? And I'm like, of just not being good, of not like, I'm like, I do have an issue with perfection. And this is something that I'm aware of and I work on. And she's like, but if you're perfect, your children are never going to learn, because children don't learn from you telling them. They learn from actually being shown certain things. Saying thank you. Like, kids don't learn and you're like, oh, say thank you after that. Like, they need to show it.
They do as you do, not as you say. So like, they don't learn from what you tell them. They learn by modeling. They take it in by modeling.
She was telling me, she's like, being a perfect parent is actually not good for your child.
Yeah.
It's almost like she allowed me to really believe that I didn't need to be perfect. There was like, she was giving me permission that being perfect is actually not going to be good for your kids because they need to see these things. If you fight with your husband, that is okay. But then you need to do the repair with your husband in front of your child so they can see like, oh, look, if I don't like someone, I can just talk to them about it and we can work through it. And she's like, being perfect will actually be like more of a detriment to your child. And I was like, oh.
Well, think now.
So check mark, good enough. Got it. Working on it. And just.
I'm going to be perfect at being imperfect.
Yeah. So, yeah.
That's not good too. But like, you're right. If our kids never see us make a mistake, they never see us struggle, they never see us argue or do something wrong, how are they ever going to learn how to prepare from those things if they've never seen an example of it?
We're almost setting them up for failure because they are going to struggle in life. There's going to be hard things that they have to do. And it sounds very stressful when you put that all on your own shoulders. I need to teach them all the things. And we're not trying to be like...
No, but you're teaching them by just being human and making mistakes because mistakes happen.
Actually going through life as life happens and not trying to hide them from all of the disagreements and things not going perfectly and... You know, they're not going to get everything that they want or, you know, someone might not like them at one point and that's going to break your heart. That's going to be really hard to work through them. But you also want to give them the tools to hopefully work through that. And so working through it yourself is important for you, not just to be a good mom. Let's emphasize that. It's important to take care of yourself for you. But then there also has all these side benefits of being so good for your children too.
Sure. That's just like the side. And again, really, that's the goal. We want to raise, you know, not emotionally traumatized children that have emotional intelligence and development, but we also want to have fun while doing it. And
and you deserve to have fun. You deserve to be happy.
Yes.
You while are also worthy. Teaching your children things. Yes.
You are worthy. And like you enjoying motherhood is going to make you a better mother, where you can be a great mom and hate motherhood and not enjoy it. So why don't we find the things that help us enjoy it so that we can also be good moms? It's because the patriarchy, they don't want us to have fun. Yeah. Anyways,
we said this was going to be a short episode and we're at an hour here. So we could wrap this up.
Wait, before we finish.
Okay.
One way we're going to finish our episodes now is talking about being friendlier to ourselves. So we talk about on Friendly Fridays on Instagram that it's important to be friendly to all moms, but the mom that is the most important to be friendly to is yourself. So Jen, why don't you tell us, what is a way that you have been friendly to yourself today, this week, whenever?
I have been, well, this one is, we're doing this together, but the yoga challenge and giving myself permission and actually prioritizing doing, even if I don't get the whole session done of yoga, but actually putting the effort into every night. I sit down, I get on the ground, and even if I do the beginning, like breathing, I'm just like, okay, that's a win because I took the time, those 5 minutes for myself. And if I can get through the whole practice, amazing. But I'm just trying to stay focused on at least a few minutes of being present in the video. And I've been able to do that. And that just, and I haven't been mad at myself if I don't finish the video. I'm like, I did 10 minutes. That's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been trying to focus on this week, especially. Just being kinder to myself. It doesn't need to be perfect. Yeah. But I'm trying. I'm focusing on that. Something for me. Yay, me.
Yeah. Yoga is a good way to be friendly to yourself.
Yeah. So what about you? What have you been doing to be friendlier to yourself this week?
I have been eating 2 breakfasts, actually. I call it my second breakfast. So usually we're very like a routine based family. We all have eggs and toast, sometimes a little cheese, but I've been still so hungry after that. And then my coffee's been upsetting my stomach. So I've had to like let go of the like narrative that I can't eat more than my husband. And I've been adding like a second half to my breakfast. So either like a yogurt bowl with some granola and fruit or oatmeal, but I've been adding like double essentially what he's eating because that's what makes me feel better. And that's what makes me actually have the energy to then go to work or on my days off, do whatever without feeling hungry all morning until I get to lunch. So there's so much like diet culture wrapped up in this. But for me, it's like I'm just being friendly to myself by eating enough breakfast to actually feel full.
Like acknowledging what your body actually needs. You're being like, I need more.
Yes.
And you're doing that.
And like maybe.
Good for you. That's awesome.
I am realizing like I need more breakfast. Like I'm freaking starving.
Yeah. So, that's huge though.
Yeah. I've been having some yummy little breakfast. It's great.
That's awesome. I'm very happy for you for that.
So thank you. My tummy's been happy too. So everybody go do something friendly to yourself. Yeah. You deserve it. You are worthy. You are. And like actually listen to that again. You are worthy. Because I know like you can hear it and be like, yeah, whatever. But you are. You are, Jen.
Listen and feel it.
You are, Karlee. All right. Ciao. I'm talking to myself. Bye.
I was like, should I have said that back to you? Would that have been nice if I replied back to?
No,
Okay.
that's okay. I can be friendly to myself.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.